Welcome to the Legal File. Welcome to the Legal File. My name's Charles Parselle. It's a great pleasure to be here with an attorney from Germany who's also now living here in Los Angeles and practicing law here in a very particular way, Michael Hemming. Michael, pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks very much for coming on. So you're here living in Granada Hills?
Yes, I do.
And you're from Germany?
I am from Germany, Stuttgart, Germany, and I've been an attorney over there for the last 15 years. And about 5 years ago, I started my own business over here, mediation business, Mediation International. And we started an office for our law firm here just about 2 years ago. And now I'm practicing both law and mediation here in Los Angeles and in Stuttgart, Germany.
Well, everyone knows what law is, but I'm not sure that everyone knows what mediation is. So what are you as a lawyer doing practicing mediation, and what is it?
Well, mediation is a way to give people a chance to work out their conflicts themselves. Usually, if you have a conflict with your neighbor, your spouse, a business partner, you contact an attorney, and the attorney will write a letter to the other party telling them what they have to do. And what happens is usually nothing, A, and B, you'll receive a letter from the other party's attorney. And you will end up in court, and the judge will make a decision for you. Mediation is different. You still get your conflict, of course, but the difference is that you don't have a judge who makes a decision for you, but you work out your conflict with the other party, and a mediator assists you in doing so.
Well, that's very interesting, but what if these various people who are in conflict don't really want to work it out?
Well, this is one thing that you have to make sure before you start mediating as a mediator. You have to make sure that both parties are willing to cooperate. Sometimes you get the situation that people pretend to be willing, just maybe they want to drag the situation a little along. There are various reasons why you want to do that. Sometimes people are insecure about what's going to happen, so they're hesitating to join mediation. And sometimes you get people in mediation and they find out at some point when you tell them you have to take responsibility for the outcome of this process. They don't want to do this, and they're backing out. So at least you need some willingness to cooperate, and if you got that, then you can be pretty sure that you'll be able to work with them, because they feel very quickly that they are indeed able to work out that solution.
So, if I get in a fight with my wife, we'll call it a conflict. Obviously, I don't sue her, and we don't call in a mediator. We just live through it. We work it out.
Right.
But now I could say the same thing about a business partner, or anyone with whom I do business. I might get into some kind of a dispute with them that wouldn't necessitate filing a lawsuit. Mm-hmm. But I would generally work it out with them. So I'm wondering, in what circumstances do we need the intervention of a mediator?
Well, it is not always the situation where you get into a legal fight. Very often it's just misunderstandings, miscommunications, and the way we normally deal with those situations is we avoid each other, or we start a fight, run away. So very often communication breaks off, we have hard feelings, and we express those or we don't. So very often these situations, workplace situation, conflicts, where you have two people getting in conflict about a minor issue. Then they start to fight first. Then when they see it doesn't get better, they talk to the boss, they talk to the co-workers. You get some kind of escalation in the conflict. And very often the situation is not well dealt with. So if it is a matter of working together, living together, it's sometimes only necessary to give the two parties a platform where they can exchange their views, their needs, and if your wife would be able to tell you in a calm voice what she wants from you, and you'd be willing to hear and listen what she has to say, then maybe you'd be able to better understand her, and if you better understand her, the two of you might be able to work out a solution, something in between the needs and wants of both.
Well, it doesn't work out exactly that way. In my marriage, we have the fight, and then we compromise, and by doing exactly what she says.
Yes.
And I'd say that's the secret of a happy marriage, if you're a guy. Okay, enough said on that. Now, how did you get into this in the first place?
Well, that was a coincidence that started very early. I was an intern in a law firm in San Diego back in '92 for a couple of months, and we had among all these attorneys one retired judge, and I watched the clients that entered the law firm, of course, and the faces of those clients that went to the attorneys were always like, and people seemed to have big problems when they entered the law firms, and sometimes I had the feeling they had even bigger problems when they left the firm. It was different with that judge. Parties had the same expression on their faces when they entered the law firm, but when they came out of his office, they all seemed happier. And I was wondering what he did, what his magic was, and I asked him. It was mediation. So I was interested in mediation and did some research. At that time in Germany, mediation was unknown, or little was known about mediation. And a couple of years later, I started my own mediation training after having found out that my clients sometimes were sad at the end of their legal dispute, even though they had won the case or they had settled the case in a favorable way. And the reason for that was because of the attorneys who turned the conflict into sometimes even worse situation for the clients. Their relationship was completely destroyed. They weren't able to talk anymore. And so it was very often the situation that I found, even though the client should have been happy, he or she wasn't. The only one who was happy was me, because I was so proud of myself having won the case. But over winning the case, I had destroyed or helped to destroy their relationship.
Oh, so do you have an actual example of that?
Yes, of course. You see it very often in divorce mediation or in divorce cases. The couple tries to work out, once they have figured out that they want to have a divorce, they're trying to figure out what they can do themselves. Then they end up in fights. They each get their attorneys, and then we've had that situation that she wants spousal support, and of course he wants to pay as little as possible. Usually then the fight starts over how much she's entitled to, and you end up with some amount. But I had this case when the wife didn't just want support for the rest of her days. She wanted to start a new life. But in order to be able to start a new life, she needed to go back to school. So what we were able to negotiate was that she got, for the time she had to go to school, which was 3 years, she got more support, so she could hire a nanny for the kids and go to school. And after the 3 years, she was able to earn her own living, and she wasn't depending on her husband's or ex-husband's money anymore. So his payments were lowered, and finally he didn't have to pay anything anymore. So both had the chance to start their own new life.
And was that a mediated solution?
Yes.
That was a mediated. Mm-hmm. But if it had been a litigated solution, you think it could have turned out a lot in a less satisfactory way for both the parties?
Yeah. You mentioned compromise. That's the best you can get in a litigated case. Compromise means you meet halfway somewhere. And this situation can be described as you're getting the maximum, but you're getting always less. And you're never really happy with that. But with mediation, you're not looking at how much can I get, but you're looking what will I need in the future. And then you can work out something like in this case, you can work out a plan that one supports the other until it's not necessary anymore.
Right. Another factor which I'd like you to comment on. I handled a divorce for a couple for whom it was for one of them it was the second divorce. I was told that the first divorce had cost, which was a litigated, hard-fought divorce, it cost $300,000. So I think he and they were very happy, to the extent that they were happy about getting divorced. But in terms of the money, they were quite happy that the entire thing had cost them about $10,000. Mm-hmm. I think for a lot of people, $10,000 may be quite a lot of money, but it's a lot less than $300,000. Do you find that the financial aspect of it weighs heavily on people's minds?
Oh yeah. I had this one dispute within a family. It was a family of farmers, and father decided that he wanted to retire, and they had two sons. The oldest son didn't want to become a farmer. He went somewhere else, did something else. The younger son wanted to be the farmer and the successor on that farm. So they started to work out a plan how to hand down the farm from the father to the son. And they got into a fight over that, because the father still reserved the right to say what he thinks should be done. So it wasn't really that he handed over the business to his son. He was still there. His shade was there. His wife wasn't happy about that, and they ended up in a divorce battle over that. They came to me after having spent about 15,000 to 20,000 euros at that time.
Which would be about double that in dollars?
Approximately.
Yeah.
And then they couldn't agree on anything. We talked about the willingness to cooperate. It wasn't there, so they kept on fighting. After they had tripled that money, they finally figured out that it's probably not the best way to keep on wasting money. And so the pressure coming from the financial aspect of a dispute brought them back to the table. We sat down together. They weren't happy in the beginning, but we were able to find a solution both for the marriage and the farm.
Which is encouraging, which you feel could not have been obtained through the decision of a court, through litigation?
Definitely not. The judge will only look at what people want from each other or deny each other. He will never look beyond that border. It's like the left and right border. And in mediation, you will always look beyond that border, and what you will do is you will look for other options how to get the situation worked out beyond the legal possibilities.
Yes. Do you find that that apologies, which I know really do not happen in court cases, it's not possible for the judge to say, A, you're going to apologize to B. That has never happened. I suppose never will happen. But what about in mediation, where where the dispute could go either way? It could go into a legal setting, or it could go into a mediated setting. Is an apology a possibility?
Definitely is, and very often it is the most important thing to start a mediation process. There is always the conflict that covers everything, but underneath the conflict there is the problem. The problem is usually not too hard to deal with. Solutions to a problem we have to find every day. But the conflict makes the solution of the problem so difficult. So first of all, you have to get rid of the conflict, which is usually something that happens in the emotional aspect of a relationship. And of course, an apology helps to clear the smoke, and then you'd be easier in solving the problem.
Yes, I found apologies can be a little bit delicate. I've often had a situation where the person who is invited or supposed to apologize is going to offer in the first instance something like this: if I have done anything wrong, then I apologize. What would you have to say about that kind of apology?
Well, apologies come in different ways. And in a situation like that, I would work as a translator to make the apology understandable for the other side. And you cannot expect somebody to really go, "Oh, I am so sorry, I will never do that again, and it was the worst thing that I could have done." But you can get the intention behind the words that you hear out into the open and hand it over to the other party, and that would be what I would do in such a situation.
And have you had that experience?
Definitely, you have that situation, especially in a situation when you have the boss in mediation with the secretary. The boss will never ever apologize. It's not going to happen. What he will do is, in the same manner as you described, offer the possibility of something went wrong and had something to do with him.
So now, in that circumstance, then you're going to literally be the translator and convey the apology to the other side using your own words?
Yes.
You are.
Yes.
And you find that's accepted, that's well received?
Yes, as long as you're not interpreting, but asking the person what the person meant. If you're offering your own interpretation and asking if that is correct, what you understood. If I would ask you, do you mean by saying that there was something going wrong, that this and that happens, then it's easier for the other person to say yes instead of formulating that apology themselves.
Right. Some people say that that mediation is more satisfactory for a person who, quote, wants his day in court, or wants her day in court, that the mediation setting is more satisfactory than the court setting for getting what most people mean by, I want my day in court. Do you want to comment on that?
Well, people who want their day in court and who want to fight, they don't go into mediation. People who want to talk and who are looking for a platform to be finally understood by the other party, they show up in mediation, and they'll get their day in mediation.
Yeah, I understand people who want to fight, but I've often found that when a person says, I want my day in court, what they really mean is, I want the opportunity to tell my story in full to someone who's willing to listen. And I won't speak for Germany, but I will speak for where I practice law. You don't really get that. In the legal setting, the best you get is that you give evidence yourself in a highly controlled way.
Yes. That definitely is very important to your parties, especially when they're in a close relationship. They want to tell their story, and what happens is in communication, when you're in a fight, the period of time that you listen to what the other person says gets shorter and shorter because you're so involved in already getting prepared for your next shot at the other person that there is no actual communication. It's only a one-way street. So people are desperate to for a forum where they can be heard, and that's what we as mediators offer. There is a forum. Each party gets time to articulate themselves, tell their stories, and even get angry, yell at the other person for if that is necessary, if they feel that it's necessary. So there is some kind of a relief valve in mediation as well, something that never happens in court.
I've certainly found that myself. I've had situations where the emotion has flowed very freely, both grief and sometimes fear is expressed, but often people are very unhappy about what has happened, and I've had situations where they will talk about it for an entire day, and then really it sounds a bit odd, but feel that their lives have been changed and are then willing to negotiate whatever it is they need to negotiate. That's not something you're going to get in a courtroom.
Definitely not.
How about anger? My view on anger is that it should always be encouraged. Well, I know I'm in a minority in that view, but I found it works very well.
I do support you on that because I think anger is just one of these emotions, and you have to admit anger as well as you admit grief. And so once that anger has been expressed, I always talk about the conflict cappuccino. The conflict is the foam on the cappuccino. The problem is the coffee below. And what you actually want is, you don't want the foam on your cappuccino. You actually want to get to the coffee. So first you have to get rid of the foam, and the foam is the emotions. So if you clear the smoke, then you'll get to the problem, which is the coffee.
So, and that is something, in my experience, that people really like and appreciate. Same, your experience? Mm-hmm. Do you find any great difference between people over here in terms of their human conflicts and people over in Germany where you have come from?
Absolutely not. I think we humans work the same all over the world. I see cultural differences, but those cultural differences have an impact on how people communicate, how people deal with their emotions. But the physics of a conflict are the same all over the world. What you need to do as a mediator in international conflicts, as I am, you need to do again translation work, and that is very important. Other than that, there are no big differences.
So, people who go on television and tell us people are the same all over the world. Basically, they want the same things, they fear the same things, they love. Just like, you know, from one place to another. You'd agree with that from your own personal experience, yes. Yes, very interesting. So, do you think mediation, we're almost to the end, but you think mediation as a new profession has really got a future?
Absolutely. I think there is an evolution of our way to deal with conflicts. If you look back in man's history, people have started wars. It was a common thing to fight. It still is, and it'll always be. But people have always looked for more refined ways to deal with conflicts. And I think mediation is the latest step in this kind of evolution, so it has a future.
It has a future. So, well, first of all, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been great. So today we've been talking about a new discipline, a new profession, really, over the last several years, the growth of mediation, which is a very particular way, which is not therapy, but it is a way to bring people together who are in conflict and allow them to work through whatever it is they're fighting about and get it over with in the way that they want. So thanks very much for listening. Thanks very much for coming, Michael. Hope we get a chance to do it again soon. Pleasure.
Thank you.